everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Untold Truth, the podcast where we literally punch racism in the face. Tonight,
That's right.
we are so excited to have Resmaa with us. My brother
Mm,
is given kindly of his time to be here. So sit back, relax, and spend the next hour with us. Resmaa coaches leaders and people to rise through suffering's edge. His work focuses on making the invisible embodied and visible. Menakem is a healer, long-time therapist, and a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in the healing of racialized trauma. He's also the founder of the Cultural Somatics Institute, a cultural trauma navigator, and a communal provocateur and coach. For 10 years, Resmaa co-hosts a radio show with the former U.S. Congressman Keith Ellison on KMOJ-FM in Minneapolis. He's been on radio, he's been on TV, he's best known as the author of the New York Times bestseller, My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies, and as the originator and key advocate of somatic abolitionism, an embodied anti-racist practice of living and culture building. So there's so much more that I can say about this brother, but I think he says it best. And so tonight is really an awesome opportunity to just engage, to run through some concepts, ideas, and to empower our people on how we build a global anti-racism movement that is not just inspired by flimsy hopes that white people sell us, but it's built on the understanding that we are the global majority and they
right.
can do whatever they like, but we will end up on top no matter what
That's
they
right.
put before us. So, brother, welcome, and it's good to have you here.
Brother, man, it is anytime I can spend some time with you, man, and just chop it up, act like people ain't even listening to us, and just and just go and anytime you tell me that we're gonna have an hour to punch white supremacy in the face, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
There you go. So, and that's the thing. We're gonna explore some ideas, and just see if it makes you uncomfortable and you're white. That was the intention. Hopefully, you come back for some more,
Yeah, that's right.
and then we can see how we work together. But for now, let's
Mm,
talk about the things that's important for us. One of the things that came up that we need to discuss tonight is obviously Ubuntu. Now,
mm,
the interesting thing about Ubuntu, and it was trending in the US a few weeks, maybe say a month ago, a month or two ago, because Tom Cruise was in South Africa and he was shooting a film in one of our uh, black communities, and they taught him the lesson about Ubuntu, and he took that with him to went and appropriated it in the US, and he made this whole speech on social media about how Africans have this amazing statement that it's called Ubuntu, and it means I am because you are, and it was so amazing to hear that. Okay, let's embody that. Yes, it's a statement that we use. It's a cry of honor and togetherness that we use as Africans. Yes, white people want to use everything, but it's not for all of them. To commercialize and use as a gimmick because it has real value here. And so Ubuntu, let's talk about that.
yeah. So uh, part of me that wants to start off what I'm saying by saying fuck Tom Cruise, but I'm a refrain. I'm a refrain from that. Um, so I was on I was on Instagram the other day, and there was this there was this post that came up, and it was about this white woman who was an entrepreneur. And one of the things that she did was is that she discovered that if you take a silk bonnet or wrap and put it around your head, that it will help to not break the edges off and it will help to keep the hair laid back, and she discovered that.
Discovered this, yeah.
She discovered something that black women have been doing for thousands of years, wrapping their damn head up right before they go to bed. She
Absolutely.
discovered it.
Yeah.
And and white folks, man, white bodies, is in particular colonized white bodies, have this idea that if they see it, then it didn't exist before they saw it. So
Mm,
they discovered it.
true.
And I call that part of the colonizer ethos, the colonizer philosophy, the colonizer psychology, right? And and when that type of stuff comes up, sometimes some of us react to it like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing that. We have to start understanding that this stuff is a philosophy. It is not just people calling us the N word. It is that their philosophy is predicated on the idea that they deem and deem themselves the supreme standard by which all bodies, humanity shall be measured. So when Tom Cruise heard in Ubuntu, the way that it went through was, how can I use this? Not how can I emerge this in me with other white bodies? How can
Mm,
I use this in ways that maybe ingratiate me to some people, or in ways to position me as a person of culture
yeah.
and knowing and somebody who is studied, right? So really the act of saying Ubuntu is a personal act to try and position himself to get something, to colonize something, to um flatten something, right? So
Yeah.
what he wants to do is say, because it was given to me, I can now give it to you without checking with the people that gave it to me.
Yep.
Ubuntu came out of cultural mores, a cultural understanding of thousands of years of the ethos around I am because we are. Not I am because I am and I can use this shit however way I want to use it.
Yeah.
I am because we are, and what happens to you. This is the same dude. Tom Cruise is the same dude that when actors who are on strike here in Hollywood said, hey man, you should come and walk the picket with us. So these film and television oligarchs don't take our work and push it through AI and not pay us for it.
Yeah.
You should come in, show solidarity with us, and work for most of the actors who don't make money. You know, you make millions upon millions of dollars. It would be a good idea if people saw your face. He said, nah. He said, nah. So so him trotting around the idea of Ubuntu is not a lived experience. It's
Yeah.
just a catchphrase. It's
Yep.
like, where's the beef? It's like you know Coke is life. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like the Budweiser, the family of beer. Like it's like any catchphrase that's gonna lose any essence
Yeah.
within 3 days, and then he'll move on to and colonize something else. The colonization is not episodic; it's structural. He can't help himself for doing it because he doesn't have anything else to offset it. There's nothing
Yeah.
in Tom Cruise's world that would say, "I need to breathe into and live into the idea of Ubuntu," other than a catchphrase.
Yeah.
But that would mean that he is tied to something other than Tom Cruise.
Yeah. I hear you. I absolutely hear you. And that's the thing. Like you say, this is exactly what they do. And I like how you point out the fact that we've been doing things for years and years, thousands, hundreds of years. A white man sees it once, he claims and colonizes that event or whatever,
That's
that
right.
term or that whatever's
That's
happening
right.
in that moment, and then he commercializes that and make millions, and sometimes they make billions of that, and
That's
we
right.
are never acknowledged in that. And but
That's right.
it's our
That's
IP.
right.
We've been doing these things, but
That's
there's
right.
a stake, right? So there's never this consciousness of giving back, coming back, giving back. It's always about taking. And
There's always.
on the other hand, I'm going to extend the phrase of Ubuntu, right? Because it's in South Africa, it's an isiZulu phrase, and it's taken even further where we say Umuntu, Gumuntu, Kabantu, which can be translated as a person is a person because of and through others. So I am
Yes.
because we are, but I'm also a person because of other people around me.
Exactly.
And
Exactly
it's completely counter to how this
right.
phrase was embodied by him and how he moved with it. It was totally
Yes.
taking from that
That's right.
that concept and taking for himself versus empowering, and so
Right.
interesting how even that which have built these communities for us on these phrases, and like you say, it will live on for hundreds and thousands of
Mm-hmm.
decades
Mm-hmm.
more.
Mm-hmm.
However, with them, it's the next height of their
Yes,
moment
exactly
in
right.
the spotlight, and then they
That's right.
move to the next one.
That's exactly right.
Even
Exactly right.
something as
Yes, sir.
spiritual and deep for us here will be
That's
used
right.
in that moment of a flash for him,
That's right. Listen, but this is the way, right? This is the way. You have right now as we speak, white people who call themselves yoga practitioners,
Mm, yep. Yep.
experts on indigenous culture, experts on African culture. Um, can debate you about dates and times and who did what and all that different types of about black people, about indigenous people, and the idea that there's nothing that is sovereign that comes from the black body or the indigenous body is woven in and around and through French and France and French people and Spain and English and
Mm,
England and Portuguese and the Dutch, right? All of that shit, brother, is part of their incessant need to hoard and turn everything into a greed endeavor, right? There is no use for it, and they don't believe that you should have anything at your disposal that they also should not partake in. Like the whole piece, the whole colonizing and colonized piece is really about the black body, the indigenous body, should and shall not have any dominion over itself that we don't agree with, that we can't benefit from. I mean, look at what they're doing in Africa, bro. Like in your country, right? In South Africa, the people for South Africa is not a poor country. It is poor. It has the semblance of poorness because the people that are in charge have only an extractive understanding and
yeah.
not a stewardship understanding, right? A ownership understanding and not a communal understanding,
Mm,
right? And so all of their approach is that's why you keep seeing it over and no matter what country you go to, you see it in every country. The darker you get, the more you're at the bottom,
Yeah,
right? And people will say,
absolutely.
well, this, in Africa, it's not like, of course, what do you think? You don't think for hundreds of years Europeans carved up Africa in order to extract both the people and the resources? That's what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly the conversation we're supposed to be having in
Hmm.
this country. And I'm thinking that I'm preempting our last conversation about futuristic Africa. What does that look like? And I'm so excited to share that we currently have the BRICS summit here, which is the BRICS nations, which currently we only um, uh, five in the BRICS nations, but there's a lot of the other countries at this 15th anniversary of the BRICS collaboration
Explain
of
what
these
that is.
five
I don't
countries.
know what that is. What's the BRICS? What's the BRICS?
BRICS is a collaboration between um, Brazil, India, China, South Africa, and Russia. So the BRICS nations are busy establishing our own World Bank, our own African empowered systems, treaties, and things like that. And so we're currently having this the collaboration of these nations having their 15th or 14th coming together of the BRICS nations. But now we have 4 or 6 new nations that is coming, and they would like to join BRICS, right?
Who are they? Who are they?
I don't know who the new ones are that
Okay.
they just currently it's just being said that there's this 4 6. I can get it for you maybe later, but
Okay.
what is
Cool.
happening now is China and
Hmm.
Russia is bringing the type of power that the US and the UK used to be to everybody else
Hmm.
in the world. That's why we're seeing all this funny stuff happening with wars and all of that. So we're not saying war is good. We're just saying people are now standing their ground. That has never been the case, right?
Hmm.
So these nations are now building on this idea that what does the world look like where the dollar, the mighty dollar, does not dictate how we do trade anymore? How does that
Hmm.
look for Africa if Africa's resources become their trading power and not
Hmm.
be only extracted because of the treaties that have been done before? And then our president, he has many flaws, and a lot of us are not happy with him and him being in charge. But he's been saying a few hot things in the political sphere, and one of them today that he stated was it is unacceptable that the global north uses the economic systems to enforce their agendas on African countries. That need to stop. And this
Hmm.
idea of imposing because they have that economic systems that they drive needs to be looked at and how we change that. So we're starting to come up with, oh, we're not going to take this anymore. We're not going to take this anymore. You need
Okay.
to see
Okay.
us who we are.
Okay.
You need to know that
Okay.
we're somebody. So
Hmm.
I think we're getting there. The
Okay.
penny is dropping slowly but surely,
Right.
maybe for
Right.
whatever purposes, for their own purpose or whatever, but it's coming. There's a
Yeah.
conversation where we're saying we're not just at the beck and call of your charity that you've been giving to us. We now sit
Which
here
ain't charity.
as yeah, we have the ability to speak our minds now, and that has never been the case. And so now you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of Africa is going to become more problematic because we now actually speaking.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
servant has forgotten his space, his place. He's talking now.
That's right. That's right. If you think about this too, this is a problem, right? What you're talking about is a real problem globally because when we talk about Africa, we're really talking about particularly, in terms of the relationship has been that those five superpowers have had a tremendous amount of sway over a lot of these countries, like
Yeah,
France and England and the Dutch and Spain have had a tremendous amount of
yeah,
because they saddled certain African countries with so much debt while they were extracting and creating these exclusive agreements and stuff like that. But I do want to say something. And I want you to push back on me, brother, because I don't know. I just something when I heard you talk, there's a part of me that I had a sense that okay, black bodies, black people starting to speak their mind and started to say things that are within their own best interest is a good thing. And then there's a part of my belly that kind of constricted. And what I wrote down is as black people, as African people, I think the first thing we have to do is interrogate our interrogate our moves before we make our moves. And here's what I mean by that is that sometimes when you are living on a plantation and that plantation is horrible, and you look across and you see somebody that looks like you living a little better on another plantation, you think that that other plantation is good, but it's just another plantation. And so when I hear you say like Brazil,
Mm,
Russia,
mm,
India, and
mm.
China, there's a part of me that constricts, brother, because a number of those countries have not extricated themselves from the philosophy of greed and the
Yeah,
philosophy of white body supremacy. A lot of them are aligned with that.
absolutely.
So for African people, especially African community and leaders, how do we begin to slow it down so we can literally interrogate what are we actually signing up for?
Mm, mm.
What are we like and if all of the things that Russia is doing, given that their economy is tanking, all of the things that China is doing, given that their economy is tanking, what are the benefits and advantages towards them being now the extractor as opposed to France, England, and Spain being the
Yeah,
extractor?
yeah.
Is there is there something by us creating these alliances with them that will put us not necessarily in a better position, but just on a different plantation?
Good, fair point. That's a fair point, and I think that's some of the discussions that we are currently having because we're not oblivious to the fact that China and Russia are fighting to take over the spoils from these colonizers that we're dealing with at the moment. I think one of the arguments that have been made is, for example, with China having gone to an oppressive state at some point from these global powers, they look more like you say, like us. You know, the plantation, the people they look like us. They do, but their practices is colonizing in structure. Everything that they're doing is like taking up space in Africa for their own benefit to create, to extract, and take away. I think that is where we have to change our work to some extent because at the moment, when we're dealing with white supremacy, it's easy, right? Because we're dealing with white people that don't look like us, they don't think like us, they don't deal like us. In everything that they do more often than not is built in against us. So it's easy to fight an enemy that you can see coming from miles away. The ones that look like us, that's right next to us, those are the dangerous ones because without you knowing, you are being colonized. You're living the same structures. The winds are, it looks big in the distance, but when you actually count it up, it's very small. But when you look at how they growing, they become these powers they then can dictate
Exactly.
similarly. And it even becomes worse because now they learn from these dangerous ones and they become
Yes.
even more dangerous, right? And so I think our conversation need to change when we as Africans then deal as black people globally. This is why we have these transnational conversations with our brothers and sisters, because we have to start saying to each other, I know these guys. We work with these guys. We've been with these guys for like 10, 20, 50 years. So we know what they're about. So we then empower our people to start thinking beyond what we're seeing as the low hanging fruits, which is,
That's
oh
right.
no, if you deal with them, you don't have this, you don't have that, you don't have this. Yeah,
Yeah,
but what does it look like when they enter the space? Do you still have
that's
power to
exactly
speak
right,
your
brother.
mind? Are you
That's exactly
actually
right.
then, yeah, are you still living in the culture of Africanism, or do you now adopt another oppressive culture that looks and feels like it's good, but it's all about dominating who you are and taking from you? So I agree with you on that one. And I think we become more critical in the conversation and the dialogue space where we have the conversation me and you are having now, because a
Right.
lot of people are staring themselves blind into the positives and
Yes,
don't look at what could happen in terms of
that's
the
right.
negatives.
And the long game here, brother, ain't 10 years from now. The long game is 100 years from now. And
Mm,
that's how they think about how do we position ourselves by giving them money for, let's say, roads. But we dictate how wide the road should be. We dictate how the road, you can get this money, you get this $1 billion to create this super highway. But the reason why we're dictating how wide the road should be is because we want to be able to run tanks through those roads. And you think they're creating a 5 lane highway so you can get your damn, scarf from one place to the next place.
yeah.
And they're simply creating those 5 lane roads so tanks can go across it,
Mm,
right? And we don't think about that, right? And white body supremacy, brother, is not just an act or an action. It is also a philosophy. It is the
mm,
glue that moors people to something. So we forget that China and India were colonized by Europe for a long time.
yep.
So a lot of that ethos, a lot of that stuff around what is true culture, right? That shit is ingrained in their bodies too,
Yep.
uninterrogated, right? Untended to, unlooked at. And so when it shows up in the proposal for a 5 lane highway, they don't even know to look at.
Yeah.
That's how insidious white supremacy and white body supremacy is. It goes unquestioned until it's a bone in your throat and it's cutting off your air supply. And you go,
Yeah.
wait, you keep trying to clear your throat, and you keep and you're like, wait a minute,
Mm,
I didn't
mm.
sign up for that, right? I didn't. Excuse me a minute, I need some water, right? And they're like, nah, nah, nah. Remember, like 30 years ago when your
Yeah.
people signed on to create this
Yeah.
highway? If
Yeah.
you understand the fine print, that $10 billion that we gave, that you used, that you were happy to get, that
Mm,
when we told you we'd pay off your debt to America, or pay off your debt to uh to Deutschland, or not to the Dutch people, like, or pay off your debt to France. Part of that was that we could have a military base here.
mm.
Wait a minute. Well, we didn't know that part of that was a military base.
Mm.
Uh, whether you know about it or not, you wanted to enter into a relationship with us. Part of entering into a relationship with us means that if we go to war with England or America, your black asses better be right there. You better create shipping routes, right?
Yeah.
You better protect our assets,
Yep.
right? Those conversations have to happen on the front end, not the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's related to the conversation about liberations and the
Yeah,
decolonization of Africa. I think when we speak liberations, and specifically the liberation of the mind, we have to be free to ask these questions.
Yes.
even to our allies and partners, so that we're clear
Yes.
about the contracts that we're signing. Because as we see now, looking back, some of our African nations are still paying for contracts that have been signed to our colonizers. We still extracting, they still
Exactly
extracting
right.
our good resources because we broke, we poor, right?
That's right.
The biggest when I was talking to my sister Esther, and we were doing this work a couple of weeks ago, she made the point that Ghana and Guinea, I think, is two of the African nations producing the most cocoa than anybody else in the world, and yet the capital of chocolate is Belgium.
Come on. That's right. That's right. That's
Right,
right.
right.
That's right. That's right.
But go look at the cocoa manufacturers who without cocoa you can't make chocolate. But go look at the farmers that farms and creates this cocoa to make this chocolate. They poor, dirt poor, and living below the bread line in Africa, while the product that they produce at the end of the
That's
day
right.
are selling for millions
Yeah.
and billions across the world. So
That's right.
how do we decolonize the mind of the African? How do we liberate the
And the
mind of the
body.
Africa
And the
and the
body.
body? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, to this fact, so that we
Right.
can do different. You know.
So the reason why I say the body, brother, is that the body, the brain is the brain is like analog compared to the what's it called? So there's analog and then there's not electronic, but right, right. The brain is like an analog compared to something digital, right?
Yeah.
And so the body moves much faster than your cognition can.
Mm,
And this idea of think about it, brother. In Africa, these European powers are used to because it's been happening so long. Their rubric for whether or not something has value is how much free labor or as close to free labor they can extract.
mm,
That I mean, that's like
true.
when they look at your body, brother, they look at my body, brother. What they see is free. They see
True.
free. And if you say, wait a minute, y'all stop paying us. Y'all, it's here in America. Y'all bamboozled us with the 50 with the 401 retirement account. Stop paying what you paid my great great grandfathers or my grandfather. You paid him a what is that called when you work for a year and they give you a you work for 30 years and you get a pension, right?
Yeah, pension
Like
fund. Yeah.
pension, yeah, pension was like you made $25 an hour, but your labor was actually $50 an hour. They
Mm,
take that 25 and put it into a pension and invest, right? That's supposed to be the deal, but then they bamboozled us into taking some of that 25,000, right? And then putting it in a fund for ourselves so we could have, right? And so it's all about how do these oligarchs, how do the ruling class, how do the merchant class, how do the accounting class, how does the lawyer class, how do they get as close to free
mm,
in order to give their shareholders as much profit as we can? In here in America, the average CEO makes 350 times more than their lowest worker.
wow.
So, and that's true across the world.
Yeah,
So, of
absolutely.
course, that farmer has there is no value to that farmer's labor. Because if there was, they would make sure that farmer had enough not only to survive but to thrive,
Yeah.
right? The extraction we would not pay, Belgium would not pay. I don't don't know
Yeah.
how much they're paying, but they would not pay $1 a barrel and then sell it for $150.
Yeah.
Like these white folks and these people that are aligned with the white philosophy are so conditioned around free. And if it costs more than free, they start hemming and hawing.
Yeah.
They've been conditioned to believe that if you can get the look at Nike, right? Look at China. I mean, China has a history of giving up their people,
Yeah.
right? Giving up that labor to the degree that they create the floor or they create the ceiling being free, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, absolutely. I think this links to when you speak about the body liberating the mind. It also speaks about trauma,
Yeah.
and I think the trauma of white proximity also speaks to these nations that we are now discussing in this partnerships with BRIC, and how that impacts South Africans. And I just wanted to read this excerpt to you, and then we can discuss it. But it was written by Zukiswa Piccoli, who said that it's a double-edged sword, this proximity to whiteness that we wield and die by in South Africa as the assimilation generation born out of the struggle generation. We
Mm.
are what you would call the test tube babies of post-apartheid South Africa. We, the parents who were allowed to move into the suburbs, attend formerly white schools, often being one or two of the black kids in the classroom. Our parents had good jobs, white people jobs. We had white friends, spoke with Model C accents, that's like a white accent, and were the ones labeled different from all those other blacks that are uneducated. We are the ones who today get invitations to sit around our white friends' dinner tables, often being the only black person they are, and our thoughts and perspectives seemingly giving more weighing, unless, of course, they are inconvenient to their white sensibilities.
Love it.
And that's our reality here, right?
No, that's our reality here too.
Yeah,
You know, here, and I'm quite sure it's there. There are black people that can make good ass money denigrating black people.
yeah,
There are black people who need the validation of white proximity and the validation of white philosophy in
mm,
order for them to actually feel like a human being, to actually have some sense of value in their life. Like the more they
mm,
can talk bad about all of the things, not what has happened to black folks in South Africa and happened for years at the hands of white folks, coming and taking the land and just doing foul, for years. That for some of us, it is more for that look like me and you. For some of us, it is so important to be next to white because whiteness is in our bones. We have a sense that whiteness is truth, is is pure, is without reproach, is candor, right? And so and so we're willing to give up our communal sense of connection and kinship in order to be proximal to white, right?
yeah,
And this idea of the exceptional Negro, right?
yep,
Black excellence also falls along that line, right?
absolutely.
Kind of
Yeah,
the kind of you know um the kind of exalted 10% of those monkeys, right?
yeah,
Can actually learn to count and speak with good, right? This stuff is 400 years old. They started writing about this hundreds of years ago. About
yeah,
can you literally create a white person out of a Negro,
yeah, absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And so this piece further around us slowing down enough in our black communities to actually interrogate that in our own bodies and amongst each other. Like literally slow that down, because if we don't interrogate it, then we find ourselves assigning our or aligning ourselves with the same monster, but just in Russian face.
Mm.
The same monster, but just in with China face. The same
Mm.
monster, but with Indian face, right?
Yeah,
But the
absolutely.
same philosophy is global. White supremacy, white body supremacy is a global thing. You can track it along the enslavement routes.
Mm. Absolutely. I hear somebody asking, and so this is amazing, and we can probably go on for years talking about this, but I mean, we only have an hour, and so time runs out so quickly, and I just hate that every week, but it's so important to have this conversation. Somebody's asking, what should the characteristics be of a suitable a suitable partner for African countries to partner with? What should that characteristics be of that country?
Yeah,
So I'll
that's.
leave that.
Can I answer
You can
that?
go.
Should I
Yeah,
answer
you
that?
can go.
All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's not our question. That's not a black person's question. The culture that needs to exist for that, Russia's going to have to maybe stop bombing its neighbors to figure that out. The suitable
Mm,
characteristics are culture, tied to creation, tied to emergence, tied to an ancestry of abundant hospitality rather than abundant war and scarcity. Right.
mm,
So just because Russia says, hey, I want to now develop a trade partnership with you, doesn't mean um that we don't understand that Russia has positioned itself as a colonizer,
yeah,
right? To its
yeah,
neighbors, even before they come into a relationship with me. Let me look at what this is, and how do I begin to now help my people begin to ask the pertinent questions? A how do I create an education system that pushes people that look like me and you to ask the questions that make power uncomfortable?
yeah.
Not, you understand what I mean? Like
No, I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
when I see my baby, they ask the questions, and I encourage them to accentuate the cracks in the armor of India,
yeah,
in the armor of China. Like, ask the questions and support them, saying, "Yeah, Baba, what about this?"
yeah,
Right? And make that part of how we create a cultural container that pushes inquiry and liberatory practices, not just coming up with a list of, if you do this if you do this with and for black people, then we can go into a relationship. Well, people know how to talk to us. Just ask Tom Cruise.
True that. I like to slip that in there. I think it's important things to speak about. I think we touched on a lot of the things that is critical for us as Black people across the world to ponder about and see how we build this global majority and come together. And part of that conversation is how do we build our own networks. I think
That's it.
what we are doing here tonight is part and parcel of that, because um, even though we sit in countries far spread apart, we can come together in spaces like this, and we can support, empower, and just carry each other as brothers and sisters um, across this world, and of this Black nation, that we need to foster this solidarity in order to expose white supremacy for what it is, and then also beat it at its own game. And therefore,
That's
we
right.
need to build these networks. So,
I
speak to us about that, my brother.
Well, I would say not beat it at its own game.
Yeah,
I would say create a different game.
yeah,
We have to create a different game. The game, they got the game, they got the game they got the white supremacy game sold up.
Yeah.
I don't want, I don't want to, I don't want to play that game, right? That game is a foul game and it's rigged, right?
Mm.
It'd be like me playing 1 year of college basketball and somebody looking at me and going, "Hey, I think you could go up against Jordan,"
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I could fool myself into saying, "I think I could go up against Jordan too," right?
Yeah.
That's when you need your mama and your brother saying, "The hell is like, what the hell is wrong with you? Do you know what you're talking about here? You are
Yeah.
not conditioned for that level of heat, right?
Yeah.
You are not supposed like that. That's not the way you need to build in your way." What I would say, is that the game is for us as African people, as Black people, is reclamation. How do we body to body reclaim pieces that we have given away for free or have shown little value in saying this is valuable enough for me to push back on. This is
Mm.
valuable enough for me to die with. This is valuable enough for me to cultivate something. This is valuable enough for me to have boundaries and say, you will not go past this piece. That's how valuable this is for me. So I think there's a cultivation that has to begin to happen for people that look like me and you,
Yeah.
that is not about trying to play the game, but how do we temper and condition ourselves to cultivate something different that advantages us and advantages our labor and puts the right price tag on what our labor is, as well as puts the right price tag on what our rest should be.
Yeah. Absolutely. I feel you. And I like that. I like the reclamation, and I like that that is also part of our liberation, where we
Yes.
cultivate our own practices and get back to our base, which we had for so long. I know it's difficult because that which have been taken away through colonization is so significant, and we constantly trying to reach back into our ancestry so that we can reclaim that part of what we lost. But I
Let,
think
let,
it's
me, let, me, let, me, let,
easier.
me, let me just say something. Let me just say something about that piece. It is not lost.
Yeah.
It has simply been thwarted. That's it. If you look at it from an energetic place, brother, listen, I can talk to you and listen to you and watch you laugh and know the work that you're doing and and see in your body that it is not the work that you do, it is what you are.
Mm.
Like liberation is you. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I that's not so when people say it's been lost or we don't know how to get it back, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We just got to be about the business of creating a container to slow it down so we can see value in it. So we
Mm.
can work with, so we can brush it off and go, oh, and nurture it. It's not lost. It's simply thwarted. The energy of emergence has simply been thwarted, not killed.
Mm.
Not killed. You can take a weed and put a cinder block on it and come back a month later and you'll see that cinder block being engulfed by the weed.
Gotcha.
It didn't kill it. It
Yeah.
simply thwarted it. And then creation grew around it, right?
Yeah.
We have to be about the business of reclaiming that piece. It's not dead, it's not lost. We simply have to reclaim it and give value to those things that we now just throw away.
Yeah. Mm. And there's so much that we have to think about. I think something that I've been saying over the last few weeks, months, and possibly this year is saying that there's been a depth of progression from our brothers and sisters like yourself in the US that has really dealt with some of these concepts and ideas about how we reclaim and reposition, taking back our original spaces where we need to be. And I'm saying that it doesn't mean, and people have to understand that I'm not saying that the US have progressed further in dealing
That's
with
right.
racism. It just
That's
this
right.
just means that our brothers and sisters are dealing with this at a deeper level where we can now collaborate and connect with one another and learn
Yeah.
from each other so that we beat them quicker at this game
Yeah.
that they're playing,
Yeah.
because now
Yeah.
we're speaking
I
to
get
each
it.
other and not working against each other
That's it.
to find favor with Uncle Tom. That's not the game we're playing anymore. So I think that's critical for people to
That's it.
understand. This is why we do what we do. That's why we brothers, and we
Right.
stand with each other and for our sisters and for our children,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we see this vision of us being together. And so
That's right.
as my computer is running completely flat and no electricity is coming anywhere soon, we
Yeah.
in our final stages in any case of the hour. um, your parting words about how we as black people love each other
Okay.
transnationally and across the world, so that we see a better tomorrow for all of us.
And I think the first thing is, brother, is for us to keep doing what we're doing, stuff like this, and talking across the diaspora. Like, brother, this is not a one-way street. Like when I talk with you, brother, it fortifies me to talk to you. It allows, like, because when you say what you need to say, I go, yeah, that same shit. I think do that shit here, right? You know what I mean? And then when I'm hearing the way that you're working with and trying to figure this stuff out, and I go, oh, and I hadn't thought about it like that. Like that's hot. You know what I mean? Maybe
Yeah.
I could, right? And that's the piece that the
Mm,
structure hates the cracks. Me and you represent the cracks of what's possible. They want to have you
yeah.
believe that there's no change that you can make. Modernity is uniform and you just need to stop. Bullshit. The fact that me and you could be talking after everything that our peoples have been through and still have some type of liberatory brain cell in our head, some type
Mm,
of liberatory cell in our bodies. The fact that we're doing that speaks to creation itself. It speaks to our ancestors. It
mm,
speaks to elements, right? That with
absolutely.
everything that they try to do, how
Mm,
much they got this shit sold up, there's still Edwin and Resmaa talking about how to break this shit apart. How the
yeah.
hell did that happen? Right? So what I would say, keep our people, we marginalize the liberatory because we don't see immediate change. But the
Mm,
fact that we can be sitting here talking about how to crack this shit wide open and how to be fugitive and how to everything, there's shit that me and you talk about, right? That we don't talk about on the podcast. We talk
yeah.
about it because this shit ain't supposed to be talked about across the airs, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We supposed there's certain shit we talk about that's like, yeah, don't nobody else because we either we ain't got it quite worked out yet, or we know how people are going to react to it and stuff like that. So there's certain types of fugitiveness
Yeah.
that I want to encourage in our peoples. So that's what I would say. If people want to find out more about me, they can go to resmaa.com, resmaa.com, and to take classes or take a FSA course. And a lot of the work that I'm doing, brother, is not just for American Africans, right?
Mm,
Africans in America. It's also Africans in Africa, Africans in Cuba, Africans in Brazil, Africans in Ghana. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
some of these things you can use, and some of the stuff that I say, you have to just cut off or cut out what you can use and throw the shit in the trash, the rest of the shit in the trash, man. So that's what I think of
Absolutely.
it. Yep.
Absolutely. My brother, it has been absolutely amazing. It's always amazing speaking to you and spending time with you. I can't wait for us to do this in person.
We're gonna do it, brother.
Everybody that tuned in and is listening to us, follow my brother, check him out. He's amazing. He's my big brother, and I take real solace in the fact that I have somebody like him in my life and it supports me. And so it's been amazing. Thank you for spending this time with us. You've spent time with us on the Untold Truth, where we speak truth and we literally punch racism in the face. So thank you for spending time with us, and we hope to see you back again for the next one. Brother Resma, all the
Love,
best, my brother.
love you, brother. Love you.